Is the future for Mississippi State spring game in jeopardy?
You are Locked On Mississippi State, your daily podcast on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada's Team of the Week. That'll be later on in the episode. I'm your host, Jaron. With me is my co-host, Landon. You can check out my work over on Athlon Sports. I cover college football, college basketball also, which is big right now, NBA. And then Landon, big sports fan, follow him on Twitter there. He's going to be throwing out takes, especially March Madness. We'll both be rolling out takes and tweets and all that stuff. So be checking that out. And also follow us on Locked On Mississippi State over on X, because we'll be throwing out tweets on that as well. But let's get into it. We'll break down. We broke down the men's basketball yesterday. We'll talk about the women's a little later on. But since we are just now bringing back the podcast, and one of the biggest topics, I believe, in all of college football this offseason has been, is the spring game going to stay for certain teams? We've seen several teams cancel. You know, Nebraska was really the forefront of it when Matt Rule came out and said, hey, he had people get pulled off of his roster last year because of big spring games and get tampered with. So far, Mississippi State has decided to do the spring game, but as we've seen, that can change in a heartbeat.
Yeah, it can. And Matt Rule, that's an interesting reasoning for him, but seems like a cop-out. But, it is happening. It's all over.
Right.
And I don't know what the future holds. I know it's more for fans. I mean, it's kind of just a glorified scrimmage, but it gets fans excited. So I understand why coaches may not want to do it, because the benefit for the team itself is so minimal compared to just a normal practice. I mean, I'm sure there are some benefits for certain players in certain situations, but broad strokes, I mean, it's for the fans.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And that's why, like, I think it was Oklahoma, they decided to cancel the spring game, but they're doing a big fan event instead, still get the fans involved. And their reasoning wasn't really for the tampering, although I'm sure that did play a factor. It was because they had so many injuries last year that they decided this year they're cutting out scrimmages in general, not just the spring game. They're going to cut back on some of their scrimmages during practices, do a couple, but not do as many as they were because of how many injuries they had. And so that's a big thing. I think the spring game, again, like you said, it's glorified for the fans. It's a glorified scrimmage for the fans. But it really depends on your team if you need to do it or not do it. Because, like, if you are an injury-riddled team like Oklahoma is, or you don't have a ton of depth, some of the fans get to see some of these players that they wouldn't see. I remember, for years, so many teams you'll see, like, certain walk-ons pop off and have their moment who never will actually play in a real game. So some of that stuff is pretty cool to see. But really, and like you mentioned also, because you go so long without football, once the NFL wraps up, you're going to go all the way until August before college football starts. So it's good to get a little taste of football before then, but I understand why people aren't doing it. I do think that it is a cop-out, what Rule said, because if people want to tamper with your players, they're going to tamper with your players.
Yeah, they don't need to see them on a barely watched, locally televised event to tamper with them. They've already done it.
Well, and even some of the schools that get the big ESPN spring game, I think Nebraska even got ESPN or something. Those big schools, these other coaches know about your players. They don't need to go. I mean, I guess the spring game will give them a little film, but these coaches also know in the spring game you're not really going 100% and doing 100% of stuff. And, like, you'll not run your actual plays. You'll see bust all over the place. You'll see these big offensive highlights.
Plays.
Right. And so I agree with you. I think it is kind of a cop-out where they make that excuse. But I don't think Mississippi State's spring game is in jeopardy for this year.
Oh, no.
I haven't been told anything, but, we're coming up on the spring game. I mean, most of these spring games are taking place in March and April, and for Mississippi State, their spring game is April 19th. They also have several other really exciting events. Super Bulldog weekend kicks off in May, and that's with the softball team and baseball teams and all that. But football-wise, spring game kicks off April 19th, and so you're looking at a little over a month away. Like, at this point, I doubt you're canceling it, but when I said, is it in jeopardy? I think it is in jeopardy, but not just for Mississippi State. I think college football as a whole, you're going to see more teams doing. I think it caught some teams off guard this year where they're like, we've already planned it. We're just going to go with it. But I think next year you could see a lot of teams saying, yeah, I agree. Let's not do it.
Yeah, I definitely think the Mississippi State one is on for this year. I mean, unless they just get wrecked with injuries throughout spring practice and they have to cancel it. But I agree. I think it is in jeopardy for all of college football. I mean, I would expect to see a handful of teams probably keep it going for the sake of tradition or something. Right. But, I mean, with the NFLification of college sports now, I mean, they don't do spring games there. You know, there's no big showcase for an NFL team in May. They just go about business in the fall. And with the transfer portal, with all these teams hiring GMs now and all this director of player development and everything that's going on, where you're basically running an NFL team, I think it's going to start to go away from that side. You know, you have all these people who operate like that. They're not going to want to risk injuries, or if the whole exposure to tampering is actually an issue. I mean, no one's going to risk that if you're a GM.
No, you're not going to risk that at all. And, you know, we see NFL, they obviously do preseason games, which is, you know, kind of like a spring game, but they also do practices against other teams throughout the year. They kind of scrimmage and stuff. So they do some of that stuff, but they don't do a lot. They don't do a spring game per se, you know, and you know, it's a big reason is a lot of this stuff that we were just talking about. Tampering is obviously one, but injuries, I think, is a big one. And like I said, I don't think it's going to last much longer in the sport. I'm not really sure, you know, the future for Mississippi State right off the top of my head. Like, I would expect it to happen this year, but not next year. And then I think you're going to find more teams doing something like Oklahoma's doing so what some of these other schools are doing, which is making it more just a big fan event, autograph signing day, watch them do drills, or just make it a big fan event, which is really what spring game is anyways, but you actually get to see them play it. I mean, play a little bit, but yeah, so that's what I would expect.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Maybe like a 7-on-7 kind of thing. Like, you know, they couple rounds of that, but I think the full contact spring game is going to be a thing of the past within the next couple years, if not next year.
Yeah, I agree. All right, coming up, we have our biggest question marks for spring football. I know the football season is still a few months away, but we're going to break down exactly what our biggest question marks are. That's coming up right after the break. All right, the Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart from top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets. These guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week are the Duke Blue Devils. John Shire's team, led by National Player of the Year candidate Cooper Flagg, just ripped through the ACC, going 19-1. The Blue Devils were plus 434 in ACC games, the largest point differential by a power conference team in league play since Kentucky in 1953-1954. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Duke Blue Devils have done here. It's clear that our Team of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Well, life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. Affordable coverage, you can get $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day, so protecting your loved ones doesn't have to break the bank. And it's beyond life insurance. Fabric also offers free digital wills and access to investment accounts to help you plan for your child's future. Yeah, Lindsay and I, that's my fiance. We haven't had a kid yet, but this is something we will definitely be checking out when that day comes. Now, join thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. All right. Well, thanks. Oh, there we go. We'll mess it up. That's all right. Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Follow us on Facebook and X. Also, give us a like, subscribe, and share this video over on YouTube. And we're on all the platforms that you can get your podcast, so check us out there. Landon, like we were talking about with the spring game coming up, spring practices are starting all across the country. What is your biggest question mark for Mississippi State, who obviously, like we know, went 2-10 last year? They're coming in a year 2 under Jeff Lebby. What is your biggest question mark?
Well, anyone who listened yesterday probably can guess what my biggest question mark is. It's the quarterback position. It's kind of unsettled. I mean, I guess you assume Shapen is your starter, but he played 4 games last year, didn't play bad in those 4 games. I mean, 68.5% completion percentage, 8 touchdowns to only 1 interception. That's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. That's pretty good, but I do think his ceiling is limited. And if you want to take a jump with how tough this schedule is, either you have to find a quarterback who can do more, or he has to become that quarterback who can do more. And it's not like there's a ton of other options on the depth chart that, you know, you feel good about throwing out there and going, yeah, this guy can do that. They had the transfer from Florida State come over, and you have a true freshman who an explosive athlete, but a little raw as a passer. So probably not going to trust him from day one. So I just have a lot of questions about that quarterback room.
Yeah, and like we talked about yesterday, Shapen is a good college quarterback. He's just not an NFL starter, or probably really not even an NFL type quarterback at all. But for me, I want to see Mississippi State. My biggest question mark would be just their offense. I want to see that offense take a step. So it's because Jeff Lebby is known for his offense. I mean, that's how he got the job. He was great at Oklahoma. He was great at Ole Miss before that. You know, he's been great with his offenses. And we kind of talked about this yesterday when we were breaking down kind of their schedule. When you're 2-10 and you need to show improvement, we're not saying you need to now be a top 50 offense, top 50 defense. Like, obviously, that'd be incredible if you made a jump like that.
Yeah.
The big thing is make the big jump where your coach excels at. And so Lebby is an offensive genius, like we said, number 78 in total offense last year. Again, I don't fault him for that. That's a lot of players that weren't his players. He's trying to makeshift, put this team together. You know, Will Rogers obviously leaves, which was a star quarterback. He leaves to go. And so you were kind of down. And so you got to take that leap as an offense. You got to, you know, take that leap in the top 50 as an offense. And one thing we saw at Oklahoma, a lot of big plays. What did he bring in the portal? A lot of wide receivers was a lot of speed. Anthony Evans was a wide receiver from Georgia. He was their punt returner. A lot of speed there. Brendan Thompson was at Oklahoma. He has a ton of speed. He was there 1 year with Lebby, then obviously this past year without Lebby, but ton of speed. So they're going to look to take the top off. And the biggest question mark is, going back to kind of your point, is Shapen able to take the top off?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he can. I mean, he's pretty accurate, but he doesn't have a great arm to really push it down the field. Yeah, he could. I mean, he's a college quarterback. He can make the throw. It's just kind of, can he make the throw every time? Does he have the arm strength to do it down in and down out? And he's also kind of in that range where he can run if he has to, but he's not someone you're scared of. If you forget about him, he can pick up 10 to 15 yards, but you're not scared of his legs.
Right, and Lebby was so great at scheming that up. I mean, obviously we saw Matt Corral run, but he was more of a runner. But Dylan Gabriel, when he came to Oklahoma, it wasn't. It was kind of talked about like Shapen, where he can run if he needs to, but then he has a great running season. You know, two of them, but the second one was really good. And so that just tells you right there, Lebby can scheme some stuff open where Shapen does have a big game running the football if you're not, you know, watching it. And not preparing for it, at least. You know, the run game is a big part of his offense, going fast. They always said going fast and scoring from afar. That was kind of the saying that they used that, especially when he was at Oklahoma. And that's why I said Anthony Evans, Brendan Thompson. These are going to be guys that, you look at their stats, they don't have great receiver stats, but they're guys that are going to take off the offense. So you want to score from afar, that's going to be what happens. But that's why I think it's the biggest spring for him because, as we talked about yesterday, I don't think he's gone if they have a terrible season. I think he's probably getting 3 or 4 years regardless. But this is a season that you can show the boosters at least. And that's another thing. In the NIL era, you were constantly having to win boosters over and showing that, hey, this program's going in the right direction. And so in the NIL era, he's got to show the boosters at least some confidence. Like, yeah, I know we didn't, go 6-6 or 10-2 or whatever, but we jumped offensively, or we showed this huge improvement offensively, or, we showed a lot of, a lot of improvement in a lot of areas, but we played a way tougher schedule. So that's why the record doesn't look that way, but we show that we can be a really good team and end up being the program that, where we've had some success, like when Dak Prescott was there, and even Mike Leach had some decent success when he was there before he passed away. But I think this is a big year where you can at least show those boosters, show your fan base also that, hey, this thing's going in the right direction. The record might not show it yet, but it's going in the right direction.
And in that same vein, keeping with this NIL transfer portal era, you have to show the players you're heading in the right direction. Right. Because if you don't, they're going to pack up their bags and go somewhere else because it's really easy for them to do that. So you have to keep the players you have here and show the next wave of players that this is a place you want to come play. And I mean, even if you go, you only win 4 games or something, but you're putting up 40 points a game or something, like those offensive players are going to want to come play for you.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because we talked about the quarterback issue right now where we're not, Shapen's a fine quarterback. I don't love living in the transfer portal for quarterbacks. No. So the way to do that is you got to have a big quarterback with the quarterback you have on roster because that's how you get to the high school guys, especially if you're not the traditional powers, the Ohio States, the USC, the, Alabama, Georgia now. If you're not those powers, Michigan, if you're not those powers, then you're going to have to show on the field that you come play here and you'll put up big numbers. You'll be a high pick, all this stuff. Now, I'm not saying Shapen's going to have this amazing year and be a high pick because I think even if he had a really good year, he's not going to be a high pick because I think he has some limitations. But if he has a big year, you might have a really talented, senior in high school quarterback being like, I'm more talented than that guy. And he put up big numbers. Like, I can go do that. And so that's a big question mark for sure.
Shapen is getting a lot of backhanded compliments.
It sounds like we're not fans of him. We are. It's just he's not an NFL quarterback, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's hundreds of those quarterbacks that are really good quarterbacks. They're just not NFL guys.
Yeah, college is full of those guys, and there's nothing wrong with him. We're just, he's just not at that next level, and
those guys win still. I thought it was a mistake to draft Stetson Bennett at all, but Stetson Bennett won 2 national championships, and he was just like Shapen. I don't think Shapen's any worse than he was.
Oh,
yeah. So you can win with those guys. You definitely can. But all right. So coming up next, we got to talk about the women's basketball. They got the 9 seed in the tournament. Who will they play? Do we think they're going to advance? Can they make a run at it? We'll talk about all that coming up next.
All right. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Finding the right talent. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Fast and easy hiring. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Cost-effective growth. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable, top-tier freelances to scale my business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
The NCAA Tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown. Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA Tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup. Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free. It's your team every day.
All right. Thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Follow us on Facebook and X. Also, give us a like, subscribe, share this video over on YouTube, and we're on all the streaming
platforms. What you want to hear.
Yeah, comment. Tell us some stuff that you want to hear, some of the stuff you want us to talk about. We're also on all the podcast websites that you listen to, Apple, all that stuff. So check it out, send it, share it with a friend. And that would mean a lot to us for sure. But Landon, we got to get into our last topic of the day. Women's basketball, they got the 9 seed in the tournament. Yes. They're going to take on the Cal Bears. What's your early thoughts?
That's a rough draw. That is a tough Cal is a tough 8 seed. Yeah. They're coming in hot. They've been playing good basketball down the stretch, and they're an incredibly balanced team. I mean, just looking at their points per game, when you're, just looking through their leaders, it's 14.2, 13.2, 13.2, 12.2, 11.3. So it's not one person you have to worry about. Right. This whole team kind of takes turns. It's team basketball over there.
Yeah, they play a great brand of basketball. And we were looking at this kind of before we started. This is the best Cal team they've had since 2012, 2013. So they're really rolling in the right direction. They're, I believe, 25-8 on the season. Like you said, they are a loaded team because you never know which one's going to have the big game. And the crazy part is that I noticed they have 3 girls that are 6'3" or taller that are their main kind of scorers. That is some serious height, and that's some stuff to deal with. Obviously, Mississippi State, we have Okot. She's 6'5". She's been great this year, almost averaging a double-double on the season. But Cal has a lot of size, and that's going to give them problems. It could give Mississippi State problems, I should say, especially if they want to try to make a Sweet 16 run out of it.
Yeah, that length is a good point. They don't really have – yes, they have those 2 or 3 that are kind of that 6'4" range, but they don't really have any smaller players. I mean, their entire team is pretty much between 5'10" and 6'3". That is part of why they're so balanced. There's not anyone that has to stick in one traditional role or something, since they're all such similar size. I have not watched every Cal game to know if that's that's actually what happens, but with the balance and that size, I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces that can interchange.
I think the big key, both teams are really good rebounding teams, but Mississippi State excels on the offensive glass and Cal struggles getting offensive rebounds. And so that should be a big benefit. And they're also, Cal's not good at stopping other teams from getting offensive rebounds. Right. And so I think Mississippi State, if they're going to win this game, control the boards, get extra possessions for your team, extra opportunities, and then maybe you can catch fire from 3. You shot the 3 at 33% this season. Cal shoots it at 35%. So they're even a little better team, but maybe you can get hot from 3. But the key is, obviously in all these NCAA tournaments, matter men's, women's, offensive rebounds, turnovers, those are the things that will kill you. Shots will come, shots will go, but you can do those little things. Don't turn it over. Don't make dumb mistakes. Like if you're being aggressive and you make it and Paul gets tipped and stolen, like stuff like that happens, but you can't make the easy dumb mistakes, and then you got to rebound the basketball.
Yeah, and having Okot down there, she's got a couple inches on anyone Cal is going to put down there. So maybe that's the formula. You crash the boards a little bit harder, use your slide advantage and height, and just try to take over the paint and wear them down.
Right, and both teams shoot it at basically 46% from the field. So both teams are pretty good shooting the ball. Both shoot around 71%, 72% from the free throw line. They're very similar teams.
Yeah, very even matchup. They're just kind of getting there from different ways.
Yes, yeah, I feel like Cal is the more balanced team. But on the flip side, I would say Mississippi State is probably the deeper team. They're probably the deeper team. But Cal has the 4 girls that just could give you fits. And the thing that stinks for both of these teams is, kind of like when we talked about yesterday with the men, you win that game, you go play Duke. Well, if you win this game, you play Juju Watkins and USC. So have fun with that one.
Hey, that's going to be a tough game if they get there. But, I mean, Mississippi State, we did give Texas some trouble not that long ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, only lost that game by, I believe it was 4. So, I mean, it's not like the gap, that's a huge gap. They could surprise some people if they get through this first game.
Yeah, and it was a overall really good season, 21-11, but 7-9 in the SEC, and you kind of really struggled down the stretch. But like you said, you gave Texas fits. You would have liked to have seen a better showing against Mississippi in the SEC championship. Just didn't happen. But Alabama blew you out. You went back and forth with Florida, who isn't a great Florida team. You ended up losing that game, so you're really not playing good basketball here at the end.
Yeah,
so that makes it an even more of a struggle. But again, it's going to come down to rebounds. I truly believe it. And it's very similar to the men. We talked about with the men, offensive rebounding. I really think that's what's going to come down to.
Yep. Offensive rebounding and a guard getting hot. I think that's that's our formula for winning.
I think so too. All right. Well, make sure to check us out tomorrow. We're going to have a great episode. We're going to be talking about a contract extension that might interest some of you. So you don't want to miss that. But one last time, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen. Now, for your second listen, check out the Locked On College Basketball with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here, so be the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Like we said yesterday, you're probably filling out brackets. You're probably competing in brackets and all this stuff at work and all that stuff. I know I do. I'm sure Landon, you do as well. Yeah,
got one to fill out after this.
Yeah, so listen to that podcast. So they're going to help you out, and hopefully you can take home the money. And then if you want to share some of the money with us, we'll take it. I'm just kidding. It's not our advice.
Really, if you want to share something.
Yeah. All right. So I'm Jaron. That's Landon. Check out my work over on Athlon Sports. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on YouTube. Remember, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But until next time, Hail State.
Hail State.